Chapter 2, The Bottle Trees. Two figures crouched near the base of a giant oak tree. Huge knotted roots sprawled in the center of twisted, creeping shadows. The first figure, a large black man with arms of mahogany, fists like rocks, and shoulders broader than mountains, went down on one knee in the soft, damp earth. He rested his hands on a smooth log beside him. "You sure this is necessary, BR?" His voice rumbled like 1,000 trains, all heading to the same place. The second figure, a rabbit, as big as a kindergartner, twitched nervously and snapped. "Of course, I'm sure, John Henry. Hurry up. We need to get this thing over with." Something clanked in the distance, and the rabbit jumped. "Now!" "Okay, BR, okay," John said. He straightened up and up and up until his silhouette seemed larger than the old tree. "But you need to lend this old tool some power. I can't do it alone." "Whatever, just get on with it." John picked up the log, except it wasn't a log. It was a handle, the smooth shaft of a massive hammer. Carvings were etched up and down the wood, and it hummed against as the giant's hands found familiar grooves. John, with a hammer. No way. I knew that name, those characters. John Henry, and BR, Brer Rabbit, but... Brer Rabbit put his paws on the huge iron head of the hammer and began to speak in a low tone. His whispers swirled and grew until they sounded like shouts and drumming and stomping feet. The hammer's head, a thick metal block, marred with pits and scrapes, began to glow with blazing red-hot light, and John pressed it against a tangle of roots. The yawning black hole opened in the ground. At the base of the tree, John bent over and picked a small object off the ground. I couldn't make out what it was. "Go," he said to it, setting it gently into the hole. "Go now and find it! Find it! Find it!" Click, click, click. I yanked my hands off the journal with gasp. Sweat poured down my face. I was pressed against the back seat of the Cadillac as we motored along. The storm clouds had finally dissolved, and the sun was almost at the horizon, its orange and red rays pouring through the window. What was that? A dream? Had I fallen asleep while reading? Then why had it felt so real, and why was the journal closed on the seat next to me? "You okay, baby?" Nana asked without turning around. Click, 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 I heard. Her knitting needles moved furiously. Was it my imagination, or was she sweating too? "Tristan?" Click, click, click. But the pressure that, whatever it was, still sat on my chest and locked in my mouth. It felt hot and cramped and smothering in the car, like I'd been tucked in with a giant itchy wool blanket. And suddenly I couldn't breathe. I somehow managed to lurch over to the door and open the window to try to get some fresh air. "Tristan? Boy, put that window up!" Grandad barked from the front. "Letting all the dust get in here. Is you out of your mind?" One breath, two breaths. "Tristan!" Grandad twisted around, but it was Nana who placed a hand on my knee. And suddenly the pressure was gone. I reluctantly shut the window, then took a deep breath. The feelings of something pressing down on me had faded to a lurking presence. I could handle that, though it made my neck itch. Nana removed her hand but kept peeking at me, a worried look on her face. "You okay, baby?" I nodded. "Answer your grandmother when she's—" "Hush, Walter," Nana scolded. "Mind the road." I shook my head. "Just got a little car sick, I think." Nana watched me as if she suspected that wasn't true, but she didn't pry any further. "Why don't you take a nap, dear? Only another hour or so, and we'll be at the farm, and you and Granddad have some work to do before supper." She turned back around, but just for a second. Could have sworn her eyes glanced at the journal. Click, click, click. Nana continued knitting, and I looked at the journal on the other end of the seat. After a moment's hesitation, I reached over and shaded it with my hands, already knowing what would happen, but checking anyway. The journal pulsed quicker and stronger with a bright green glow. Sometime later, Granddad slowed down and turned onto a bumpy gravel road that climbed up a long hill. "We're here," he said. I jerked out of the daze. I slipped Eddie's journal back into my backpack, then stretched and looked warily out the window. Everything looked, well, it looked like the country. Yay! We are? Where? I asked. Home, sweetie, Nana said, packing up her knitting and turning to smile at me again. Just in time for me to get dinner started. There's still about an hour left to the sun, Granddad said. Can at least get part of that old fence fixed. The car chugged to the top of the hill, and I sat up as the Strong family farm sprawled out on the horizon. A patchwork quilt of green and brown fields surrounded by a huge barn and a slightly smaller house. Rows of corn stood at attention as the Cadillac ambled past, like a chariot returning with the land's king and queen. And Nana and Granddad did seem to sit up straighter as we got closer to the house. Even I could feel it, a tug from something that had been in my family for generations. This was our duchy, our territory, the Strong domain. My nose pressed against the window, breath fogging the glass. I spotted a stand of trees at the far corner of the farm. They were old, like a section of forest that time had forgotten. Their twisted giant trunks were bunched together like some sort of crowd, or guards. As I stared at them, the pressure in my chest came back, the feeling from before. Someone or something was out there searching for me. The flash between the branches caught my eye as we drove past. What's that? I asked. What's what, sweetie? In those trees over there, something's shining. Granddad shook his head. More foolishness, that's what it is. Hush, Walter, Nana said. That's just a bottle tree forest, baby. The what? What sort of trees were those? And there was another one. Something flashed again, like light on a mirror or glass. Bottle trees, oh now, would you look at that? I skipped a stitch. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the bottle trees. I could have sworn I talked up one wall and down the other about this before. She turned around in her seat. Slaves carried the practice over with them from Africa as a way to capture and dispose of any haints wandering around. Haints? I pressed my nose against the glass and squinted. Evil spirits, baby. Lord knows plenty of those rambling about well, anyway, don't you worry about it none. Nana continued. I don't want you messing around over there. Them old trees aren't for playing with. You are liable to hurt yourself. We need to cut 'em down, Granddad grumbled. But Nana just shooed the words away with her hand. Hush, Walter. Now look, Tristan, over there. She started playing a tour guide as we drove up to the house, and I settled back, unable to shake the tingling feeling that something weird was going on. Grab that end, boy, and lift. Stop half-stepping it, and put your back into it. I heaved at the end of a log as Granddad and I slid into the empty top slot of a pole. We dropped it into place, and I sagged against the repaired fence with a sigh. We'd been working for the last hour, racing the sun to get the section of fence fixed, and I was exhausted. I hadn't even had a chance to drop off my bags. I picked up my backpack, and Eddie's journal nearly fell out of the open compartment. Could have sworn I'd closed the zipper. Granddad watched me, put it away, and shook his head. He mopped his forehead with an old rag he kept tucked in the back pocket of his overalls, then put it away and rolled his sleeves down. You need to leave that writing nonsense alone, boy. Ain't gonna get you nowhere but confused. I didn't say anything. What you gotta write about anyway? Video games, TV, all that big city life got you boys soft. I would have had your dad out here at the break of dawn. How you think he got them heavyweight shoulders? Strong's work, boy. I squeezed the straps of the backpack until they cut into my palms, but I still didn't say anything. He spat out the twig he was chewing. Go on then and run that extra wire back to the barn, then clean up for dinner. Hurry up now, grandmother's waiting. I grabbed the spool of wire and stalked down the trail toward the barn. I heard Granddad grumbling to himself, and I tried to ignore it. No matter what I did or where I went, someone always wanted to tell me what I was doing wrong and what I should do different. You're pretty big, Tristan. Go play football. Stop reading comic books, Tristan, and go read a real book. Stop. I looked up and suddenly aware that the world had gone quiet. I mean, nothing made a sound. No birds, no squirrels, no rustling leaves. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The old stand of trees loomed in front of me. How long had I been walking? How had I found myself here? The shadows on the ground deepened and stretched toward me. Thick vines around the trunks seemed to curl like fingers beckoning me closer. They felt desperate, needy. The trees grew larger, larger, and it took me a second to realize that it was because I was walking toward them. Find it! The words boomed and crashed in my head, a thunderstorm of a command, and I froze. They were the same words, same voice from my dream in the car. That had been a dream, right? I reached the edge of the trees. A breeze gusted softly from the darkest center of the forest, almost like a breath. It smelled old, earthy, like whatever was in there hadn't been disturbed in years. I didn't want to be the first new intruder, and yet I took a step forward. Tristan! Tristan! Nana's voice broke whatever spell had fallen over me, and I shook my head clear the cobwebs. My right foot hovered in the air, inches away from entering the shadows. Slowly placed it on the ground and retreated a few steps. I squinted into the trees. Something was in there, and it wanted me. I could feel it. Tristan! Dinner time! Nana's voice floated out of the sky, riding the breeze in the way only an elder's voice could. I backed up farther, then turned and ran through the cornfield to the farmhouse. No way are you going into those woods, I told myself. No way. Boy, was I wrong. Chapter 3, Gum Baby. When the attack came, I was half asleep. The cod trip, the weird dream that wasn't a dream, working on the farm. By the time I went to bed, my eyelids felt like they weighed a ton. Still, I couldn't quite get to sleep. It was in the darkness, though. I wasn't used to nighttime in Alabama. I was used to the almost night of Chicago, with the glow of streetlights and the flicker of neon signs outside my window. Here, the complete lack of light made everything seem different. The flashlight lay on top of the blankets next to me. Not that I'm scared of the dark, you get me, but in case I had to use the bathroom or get a drink of water. Man, what I wouldn't have given for a couple streetlights. It wasn't the silence, though it was also way too quiet. Instead of the comforting sounds of cars and trucks and sirens and people talking on the street, I heard corn stalks rustling in the wind. The window wouldn't close all the way because of the warped wood frame, and that was good and bad. Good because I didn't feel so pressed in, so enclosed, but bad because of the crickets. Man, those crickets. Talk about annoying. How could anything so small make that much noise? It was like a million of them surrounded my window and were screaming the lyrics to the most annoying song you can think of. Yep, that one you're thinking of right now. Sucks, doesn't it? And yet, it wasn't the darkness or the strange sounds or the unfamiliar house that was keeping me up. The pressure I'd felt in my chest in the car was back, waiting for me to relax. I knew that as soon as I did, it would seize me like an opponent in the ring, clinching my head between its gloves and waiting for the right moment to let go and hit me with that perfect punch. I could feel it as soon as thump. The noise had come from across the room, by the window, like something falling to the floor. Instantly I sat up, straining to see in the dark. Now if I were back in Chicago, I'd just stuff a pillow over my head to block out the noise, figuring it was a neighbor. Our walls were so thin in that apartment, you could squeeze and two people two floors down would say bless you. But this definitely wasn't Chicago. So, when something went bump, I paid attention, especially because I was already on edge. Double especially because the sound was followed by sticky mucky stepped on a piece of taped footsteps. I stared around the room. There wasn't much furniture. A dresser with my backpack, Eddie's journals still zipped up tight inside, a coat rack, and a chair with my clothes for the day on it. Still, nighttime eeriness turned the shadows of ordinary objects into something twice as creepy. Fingers stretched out of the empty space, shapes combined into creatures that crept toward the bed. Who's there? I whispered. Nobody answered. The crickets yelled their chorus outside, and the wind cackled in the dry corn stalks. But those were normal farm sounds, right? I don't know what I expected. I took a deep breath and rubbed my eyes. This was silly. Stop being a baby, Tristan. I said, embarrassed. There's nothing here. Something scraped along the floor, and I swear I heard a voice whisper, "Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?" My heart skipped a beat, and I scrambled to the foot of the bed with the flashlight clutched in both of my shaking hands. I clicked it on, but nothing happened. "Come on, come on, come on," I muttered, slapping against the palm of my hand. The switch was stuck. Why doesn't anything work around here? Click. The beam flickered on after the 5th or 6th try. Finally! I swept the cone of light around, looking for anything remotely creepy, relaxing a bit each time as something strange became familiar. Fingers turned back into a coat rack. The creeping monsters turned back into the chair covered with clothes. The doll baby in the middle of the floor rotated his head when the flashlight beam hit it. I froze. The doll looked homemade, like someone had carved it out of wood, painted it a dark molasses brown that hadn't quite dried yet, drawn 2 black dots for eyes, and glued curly black wool on its head and 2 afro puffs. It stood still in the light, almost a foot high, and the 2 of us stared at each other. "Okay," I said, then I licked my lips. The flashlight turned off again. "Okay, this is not weird, right? There's nothing weird about..." "Who you calling weird?" I looked around, confused, as I tried to locate the owner of that voice. It sounded strange and high-pitched, like when you breathe in helium from a balloon and your voice gets squeaky. "Oh, so you don't see Gum Baby now? She invisible now?" It came down from down low. The flashlight came on just in time to catch the doll starting to walk across the floor toward me. Each of her footsteps made a sound like Velcro strips separate. She stomped closer, glaring and pointing. "Where is it? You better tell Gum Baby and fast." Gum Baby? No way. I'd heard that name before, not the little doll from the stories. It couldn't be. In the Nancy tales, Gum Baby was a doll, and Nancy used to trap an African fairy while he was on a quest. But in the story, the doll remained silent and wore leaves for clothes. This one, on the other hand, had on a black turtleneck and black pants, but her tiny little feet were bare. And what were those stains she was tracking across the floor? "Hey, Gum Baby talking to you, big boy!" The doll marched across the floor, the serious expression on her face ruined by the plopping sound each of her footsteps made. "Don't make Gum Baby climb up there!" Plop, plop, plop. "Is Gum Baby talking to a brick wall?" Plop, plop, plop. "Oh, you're asking for it now!" Plop, plop, plop. She was up the side of the bed and leaving dark stains on the blankets by the time I finally shook myself out of the daze and extended the flashlight like a weapon. Who are you?" I whispered. The 10-inch tall doll glared at me, climbed atop my foot, and struck a pose, both chubby arms spread wide, one foot planted on my big toe. She laughed in her tiny voice. "Ha ha ha! You wanna know who Gum Baby is? Gum Baby's the reason you sleep with the door locked. Gum Baby's the reason the sun runs away across the sky. Gum Baby is your nightmare, and people whisper her name and tremble around the world. Ah ha ha ha!" "Shh," I said, waving both arms in warning. "You're gonna wake up my grandparents." Gum Baby cocked her head and looked at me like I'd just slapped her. "Did you?" she began. "Did you just shush, Gum Baby? Didn't you hear the introduction? Being a nightmare and all that, and you locking your door, did that not make sense?" "No, it made sense. It just, should Gum Baby clarify?" "No, it's just fine. I don't want..." "Oh, good. In that case, Gum Baby will go inside your head if you ever think about shushing her again." Gum Baby scrambled across my lap and flailed at my chest with both sticky hands. "Let another shush come out of that mouth. Let it! It'll be the last shush your shush maker will shushify." Okay. I batted away the irritating blows, ducking and dodging more of that sticky stuff. "Stop it, that tickles, and you're getting stuff all over the bed." Gum Baby wrestled with my shirt one more time, then stood on my lap, both hands on her hips. I wiped a glob of goop off my cheek and made a face. What were Granddad and Nana gonna say about the mess in the morning? That's better. Now where is it? Gum Baby folded her tiny arms across her chest. Where's what? Don't play dumber. You know what? No, I don't know what you are. Well, I think you're, but that wouldn't make sense. Those were just stories, and can you just tell me why you're here? I meant, why was she alive and not just a fable? But Gum Baby misunderstood. She glared at me for a second. Gum Baby on a mission? Bubble tongue? Where is the sign? Gum Baby knows it's in the glowing around here somewhere. I tried to form words, come up with some sort of answer to her question, but the whole situation was too unreal. It was like I was being interrogated by a $12 toy from the bargain bin. Eddie would never have believed this. In fact, this was just the sort of story Eddie would. Wait a minute. Glowing around here? Could it be? My eyes flicked to the backpack on the dresser. Only for a second, but Gum Baby saw, and an evil smirk crossed her face. Quick as a flash, she flung more goop in my face. Think fast! Gah! I yelped. While I pulled the stuff out of my eyes, the blanket shifted and I felt it run to the end of the bed and leap off. By the time I could pry my eyes open, the stupid little thing was nowhere to be seen. A line of dark globs led to the dresser. I kicked off the blankets and ran over, looking around wildly. The backpack with Eddie's journal was gone. I spun around and aimed the flashlight at the floor. Gum Baby had disappeared. I looked under the bed. Nothing. Then I heard sticky footsteps sneaking to the wall behind me. I twisted around just in time to see Gum Baby leap out the window, fleeing into the night with my backpack, green light escaping from the slightly open zipper. Get back here! A whisper shouted as I ran to the window. Gum Baby sprinted on her stubby little legs along the dirt path outside, around the Cadillac, and up the hill leading to the cornfield. Seconds later, I couldn't spot her anymore. I slowly sank to the floor, hugged my knees to my chest, and I closed my eyes. What had just happened? This was a nightmare. That was it. My dream in the car must have never ended. This couldn't be real. I couldn't have lost the only thing I had to remember. Remind me of Eddie. And to a sticky toy at that. Stupid, stupid, stupid. My hands shook, and I pressed my palms against the floor to keep them still, right into a puddle of something soft and sticky. And what was that stuff? Honey? Strands of it, whatever it was, stretched and folded like taffy as I rubbed it between my fingers. It smelled sweet, but not exactly like honey. Something familiar, though. More of it dotted the floor, and I looked at the wall behind me. Sure enough, little dark splotches went all the way to the windowsill. A trail. I clenched my fists, then looked at the corner of the dresser where the backpack had been. That journal held Eddie's humor, his silly jokes, his stories, his dreams. It was everything. Maybe there was a chance I could get it back. I grabbed the flashlight, tugged on my hoodie and cargo shorts, and stepped into my sneakers. The window creaked as I eased it up, and the smell of horses and other farm owners hit me. Right before the wind issued a warning. Stay in I ignored it. I squeezed through the window and dropped to the porch. For a moment I hesitated. The darkness, the whispering wind, the rustling corn stalks, they all tried to change my mind. Go back inside. This ain't for you. No telling what might happen to a city boy around here this time of night. I was about to cave into the fear and go hide in my bed when the flashlight beam landed on a small patch of sticky residue on the edge of the wraparound porch, and then one on the grass a few feet away, and another, and another. I gripped the flashlight so hard it hurt. The wind whistled louder, rattling the corn, but I gritted my teeth and shook my head. You don't scare me. I'm getting that journal back. Strongs keep punching, you get me? I felt silly saying it, but Dad's mantra gave me courage. Before I could think twice, I plunged off the porch and into the night.